If you are just joining us, welcome to the Oglethorpe STEM Fest webinar. We're so happy to have you. We're moving through all of the awesome fields of our STEM programs. We just finished up with our physics and dual degree engineering folks, and now we're moving on to our amazing chemistry crew. So we have a couple faculty members and some students with us. I want to let them introduce themselves and give us a brief introduction to chemistry, the program, and some opportunities that are available. So please use your Q&A function to ask us your questions. We will be answering as many as we can live. If you're comfortable with it, please use your name so that we can follow up if we don't get to your question during this time. But now I will go ahead and throw it over to Dr. Walden and Dr. Vaughn to say hello and tell us a little bit about themselves, and then our amazing students.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Walden. I'm the chemistry program coordinator here at Oglethorpe. This is my second year teaching chemistry at Oglethorpe. I teach organic chemistry primarily. I also teach some electives in spectroscopy and inorganic chemistry. And my research program is centered on using electrochemistry to study catalytic reactions, learn more about mechanism, and design new methods for synthesizing important carbon-carbon bonds.
Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Vaughn. This is my first year teaching chemistry at Oglethorpe. I usually teach general chemistry, physical chemistry, quantitative analysis, so I kind of teach a wide variety of classes here. And my research is kind of interdisciplinary as far as taking different areas of chemistry and looking at them together. So I look at protein structure and function, and I use different physical chemistry techniques, biochemical techniques to study proteins.
Perfect. And our students, we would love to hear who you are, maybe where you're from, and then any experiences that you want to let us know about since you've been studying chemistry. So if there are any research or internship opportunities that you've been able to take advantage of, or sort of on-campus opportunities within chemistry or the sciences, we'd love to hear about that too.
Well, I'm Josh. I'm a junior at Oglethorpe, a chemistry major, and the research I've done has been mostly over summer programs at REUs. So last summer I participated in one at Georgia State, which focused a lot on chromatography, and it was like a part of a graduate student's research, where he was using it to like separate different metabolites in different like samples that were provided to him, either like through urine or blood samples. And the research that I'm doing going forward, at least, assuming all things go well, like fingers crossed, is I did get into a program for this summer. So far, all they've had to do is postpone it, but it's going to be mostly biochem related in terms of looking at different proteins and just different methods for determining their structure, I believe. But I have yet to do the research, so we'll see how that goes. But that's what I should be doing over the summer. And then I'm also looking forward to being able to do research with one of our chem professors next year, just during the actual school year, and seeing how that goes. So that's what I've been doing, what I've been up to.
Perfect. How about Taylor next? Oh, I can't. Can other folks hear Taylor?
No.
I can't hear you right now, Taylor. Hang on, we'll let NaShea go, and then we'll see if we can hear you when we come back.
Hi, my name is NaShea Kendrick. I am a senior at Oglethorpe University. I'm a chemistry major. I've had the privilege of doing some research with Dr. Walden this semester, as well as other professors at Oglethorpe in the past. and I've participated in research at Case Western Reserve University in Ohio for the past 2 summers, and I'm looking forward to starting, or hopefully starting, grad school there in the fall.
Very cool. We can see if Taylor's audio is working. I know you were unmuted before. For just make sure our microphone's turned on, but can we do another test for Taylor here? Oh no, I can't hear you. Okay, we'll keep trying. See if you can turn your mic on, but we'll keep trying. But I would love to hear a little bit about sort of why a student might choose to major in chemistry, what you might find interesting about that, or what future careers you may have in mind that would lead you to be a chemistry major.
Okay, I can start. I think a chemistry major is a great option. There are a lot of different things you can do with a chemistry degree. I think it's tough for students to appreciate all of the different things that you can do with a degree in chemistry. A lot of folks are looking for people with chemistry backgrounds and also with backgrounds just in the type of analytical skills that you develop as a chemistry major. So a lot of chemistry majors go on to pursue careers in the health fields. I think it's a great major if you're interested in medical school or other pre-health disciplines, dental, public health, med school. I think chemistry is a great option. It differentiates you a little bit from everybody else who is applying with the biology major. Keep in mind, right, pre-med is not a major. It's a set of courses that you need to take before you enroll in medical school. And those courses overlap really well with the chemistry major. So that's one option. I have friends that graduated with chemistry degrees that are pursuing careers that don't look like chemistry anymore, but their chemistry degree prepared them really well. I have a lot of friends who work in management consulting, and sometimes those firms are just looking for people with a strong academic background and analytical thinking skills. And those are all things that you develop studying chemistry. You can work for a pharmaceutical company, you can work for a petroleum company, you can work for a green energy company, you can work for a solar power company. A lot of different careers where an expertise in chemistry, materials chemistry, inorganic chemistry, reaction design can be super helpful. So don't think it limits you to working in a chemistry lab, right, and making pharmaceuticals. You can do all sorts of things with the kind of skills that you develop, particularly at a place like Oglethorpe.
Yeah, I just want to kind of second what Dr. Walden was saying, that you can do a wide range of jobs with a chemistry degree. One of the things that I never thought about until I guess it was just before the end of my senior year as an undergrad, I got to go visit some of the, I guess, not the manufacturing, but some of the offices for Coca-Cola in downtown Atlanta. And one of the things that I learned there was just how many analytical chemists they employ, because they need to do quality control on all of their products, all of their drinks and everything else. And so I think that kind of opened up my eyes that, you know, you can, a lot of companies need chemists because they need people who can do those analytical type chemistry jobs. So they're checking quality control or developing processes, or, you know, I got to talk to someone who manufactured soap, and they employed chemists to figure out the right formulas for the soap that they were producing and things like that. So, you know, you can think about things where you might imagine, oh yes, a chemist makes sense. This is in a laboratory setting, but you'll also see things in healthcare settings, like Dr. Walden was saying, and even things like patent law. I know quite a few chemists who have gone into patent law because a lot of medical devices, or you can even think about fertilizers or just anything like that, they need someone who can understand the chemistry behind it, but also understand the patents behind it too. So it can be pretty wide reaching. The last point I wanted to make that I like to think of is that chemistry feels very much like a central science, because you can you have the intersection of chemistry with other areas of science, right? You have biology and chemistry, that would be biochemistry. You have physics and chemistry, that's physical chemistry. And you have chemistry interacting with environmental science and ecology. So just you can think of chemistry as being something that you can kind of relate to other areas as well.
Awesome. So a lot of different options beyond what is the obvious, which is really cool to think about. Asking some of our students, I'd love to know some of the things that you've been able to do as part of your classes or independent research opportunities or something like that, but that you have found really cool or exciting about being somebody who studies chemistry.
For me, at least, a lot of it is instrumentation related. I've gotten to work with a wider variety of instruments than I thought I would get to, and just become familiar not just with how they work, but just making sure I'm using them properly and the various applications that they can be used for. We do a lot of workings with like NMRs and IRs. And we use them at first for like they're just straightforward applications, but through some of our like class or lab projects that we've been assigned, which are normally like towards the end of the school year for things like class and the different symposiums that we do, we're given opportunities to figure out alternate ways of using these instruments to help just determine things that we may have had questions about before, and help provide ways of essentially going about scientific inquiry just in a natural sort of way. Just like we have a question about something, we try and scientifically determine the inner workings of that specific question, or what it is we're trying to determine with these instruments that we have access to. And so something that I at least especially appreciate is being able to gather experience with these stuff, because something that's cool is, at least with some of the research that I do over the summer, it's cool when they don't have to like try and introduce me to a specific instrument. I just sort of already know how to use it, and they're able to see that like I have some experience past just like I guess what I would consider like standard laboratory experience, in terms of like just using the different things that are in labs, like beakers and the temperature related stuff. So I don't know. I think it's cool having access to all those different things and being able to use them fairly regularly for what we're allowed to.
Very cool. I'm sure that the Cousins Center helps with that, with having some new cool equipment that students are able to use. Did any other students want to chime in with anything interesting that they've learned or experienced since studying chemistry?
I just think like one of the, maybe it's not like really content related, but just one of the cool things about being a chem major at Oglethorpe is that we are one of the smaller majors currently, and that could change, but I think that provides us with a lot more flexibility as far as what goes on in class, and kind of how like classes run. I know that like Josh and Taylor have taken a field trip before with another professor, and even Dr. Vaughn took us on a field trip last semester. And I think part of the reason we were able to do that is because there were like 5 people in our class as opposed to 20. And so we just really get a lot more like hands-on experience. Yes.
Perfect. We do, I know Dr. Walden already mentioned this, we did have a lot of students in the first block and still asking about being pre-med or doing different kind of professional medical tracks. And so I know you mentioned that chemistry can be a really good fit for that. And I wondered if you had any advice for students who are considering going into the medical field and are trying to figure out what they want to study, what they want to major in, or different type of experiences they wanted to have in relation to chemistry.
Can you guys hear me now? Yes. Okay. So I'm I'm pre-med, but like chemistry major, and I'm actually doing my studying for the MCAT right now. And I feel like even though like I didn't take the biology track, I've still like kind of like dabbled my way in like some of the biology courses. But I feel like the classes that the chemistry major has had me take has really like prepared me for everything that I've gone through in the review book so far. Like Dr. Vaughn was talking about how we have PChem, and that's touched on a lot of things we've done in physics. And physics, it's part of the curriculum anyways, but it's been like a good refresher. And then of course like Gen Chem and organic chemistry, and like the major is pretty like, because we don't have like as many electives as like the biology major does, we don't have a lot of freedom to kind of like choose with everything, but you still have like the chance of maybe taking like biochem instead of one of like the other, like I didn't take the instrumental class that Josh and NaShea are taking this year, so I could take biochem, but it offers that amount of flexibility, but I think it's really prepared me for what I want to do as far as like taking the MCAT and being pre-med.
Yeah, I just want to jump in and mention that there is a lot of overlap, right? Getting through the general chemistry sequence is critical to being, and organic chemistry is critical to being able to take a lot of the upper level biology electives. Through organic chemistry 2 is listed as a pre-med requirement. So we have noticed a lot of students at Oglethorpe, and I think this is a great idea, have started picking up a chemistry minor if they're thinking about a pre-med track. You're only 2 classes away with what you need to take as part of those prerequisites anyway, because you have to finish organic chemistry 2. So then taking 2 chemistry electives, which is great preparation for your studies in medical school, gets you a chemistry minor. Another good way to kind of differentiate you from everyone else that's applying to medical school. So if you're thinking about a bio major, maybe consider a chemistry minor. Like Taylor said, I think majoring in chemistry is one of the best ways to be prepared for medical school. Also, just to kind of piggyback off Josh, I really liked what he was saying about being able to get experience with all the instrumentation that we have here at Oglethorpe. It's been one of my favorite parts about being here. I spent a lot of the rest of my chemistry career at big state schools with much bigger budgets and more instruments and maybe fancier instruments, but the students didn't get to use them. And at Oglethorpe, we have a brand new NMR that we installed in the Cousin Center last year. That's an instrument that operates on the same principles as an MRI, but on a much smaller scale. So you can think about it kind of as an MRI for molecules. And it's a critical instrument that chemists use every day. But Josh and Taylor and NaShea have been collecting their own data since that instrument arrived. And my experience with NMR as an undergraduate was giving samples to someone else who ran it and then gave me data that I tried to interpret. But because we're a little bit smaller, our students get to use all the instruments for themselves, right? Learn how to troubleshoot. I've had the NMR taken apart with Josh and Taylor and NaShea so we can figure out how it works, fix some things, but also just take it apart to take a look and try to understand it better. So a big advantage of the smaller class sizes and the more direct interactions with your faculty members is you get experiences that you wouldn't other places.
Yeah, definitely. I've heard that from a lot of students, that they're doing things that they never thought they'd be able to do, and that peers at other larger schools don't have the opportunity to do because there's just not enough to go around. And we don't have that problem so much with our lab equipment and things like that, which is very cool experience for our students. I'd love it if anybody could talk about PRISM and Liberal Arts and Sciences Symposium last for our students, kind of define what that is, how students can be involved, as well as the fact that it is coming up, and we do have an opportunity to have prospective students view some of that. But if anybody wants to give us a little bit of a taste of what that is and the opportunities that our students have to present research.
Sure, so I'll start us off. So LAS stands for the Liberal Arts Student Symposium, and PRISM, oh gosh, I don't know if I remember the full acronym for PRISM.
It's quiz time.
Yeah, I know. Posters in research. Oh goodness, I'd have to look it up. But so I'll start with PRISM since I can't
In
remember.
science and mathematics.
Yes, thank you. The PRISM is poster presentations. So often when you think about a scientific conference where scientists get together and get to talk about their research with people outside of their university and in their same field, you'll have oral presentations where someone stands up and has a PowerPoint presentation and talks through their research. And then you also have poster presentations where you create a poster that's pretty big, usually 3 by 4 feet or so. And you can walk around and it allows for you to talk to the researcher one-on-one, which is a really great opportunity. And so at PRISM, students will present posters of the research that they've been doing at Oglethorpe, either part of an independent research program with one of the research faculty, or it may be part of research that they've done for a course. And they present their research as part of a poster, and you can talk to them and they'll tell you about your research. You can ask questions, that kind of thing. It can be a nice back and forth type of conversation. And then last encompasses the oral presentation where you have a more formal presentation of a PowerPoint and someone talking through their research. Also part of this, we have some music presentations as well. I guess they may not be called presentations, music performances as well, part of LAS. And one of the great things about this actually is that for us this year is that LAS and PRISM are Thursday and Friday afternoon, so tomorrow and the day after, and they are open to the public. This year, they're going to be held virtually via Zoom, just like this. And so if you're interested in kind of talking to some more students, checking out their research, I encourage you to go to the Oglethorpe website and for LAS and PRISM, and there will be Zoom links there. So I'm going to open it up to the other chemists and see if they have anything else they'd like to add.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from students if you guys want to share a little bit about what you enjoy about LAS. Sometimes it's described as the Ogle Conference, right? It's a research conference that we have on campus here where students are presenting research that they're doing both in their classes and independently. So I know, well, I enjoy it a lot. I think the students do too. It's a great chance to share the cool research that you've been doing with your classmates and have a chance to see what's going on in all of the other classes and labs on campus.
Well, something that I like about the poster presentations that we have to do just in general is they're really, really good preparation for just presentations in general, because for the research stuff that I do over the summer, oftentimes what ends up happening is at the end of the program, we'll have to do some sort of presentation on a larger scale at other conferences. And a lot of the time I was just sort of falling back on the experience that I gathered presenting at PRISM and at LAS with the different research projects that I did. And I mean, at least from what I've heard in terms of the people who I got feedback from, like I would often get good marks, and I really do have my professors to thank in terms of what I've done at PRISM and LAS. And I think something else that's ultimately really awesome about it is, for the most part, like you're doing research about something you're genuinely going to be interested in. And as long as it applies to the field in some sort of way that you can make it tie back towards the material that you're learning in terms for that like semester, for that class, then the research is really, it's yours. It's you, you know, it's what you're doing. It's not just some sort of assigned project, you know. For PChem, we were going to be doing enzyme kinetics this year. And while that was the topic, I was able to like find something, because I'm into like reptiles. I was able to find something that was looking at like the Western diamondback rattlesnake, like looking at its venom and looking at how its like oxidation reaction kinetics of that specific reaction, how that would have been affected by different like inhibitors or different like temperature constraints. Last year for organic chemistry, I worked with Taylor, and we looked at the different alkane concentrations that are in gasoline, and like comparing that to like the octane ratings that they gave. And so they were all these are all like projects that like we personally developed, but we're able to like kind of pursue on our own. And so I don't know, it just, I like being able to have the option to I don't know, have that experience. And I know not a lot of my other friends at different schools are able to have quite as many experiences like that. Like they'll have research stuff, but it's not like they have to present, and it's not as personal to them either. So I don't know, that's kind of what I gather from Prism and Lass.
Yeah, a quick note in general, I know Dr. Vaughn mentioned that it is going to be open to the public. We are going to be including the links in your follow-up emails, everyone who was here for the webinar. So we will make it super easy for you to jump in and participate if you like. We won't ask you to present anything, I promise. But if you want to view, we would love to have you in there. In general, research is such an important part of being a good candidate for graduate school and jobs and things like that in the sciences. So the earlier you can start to get those experiences and know what you're doing and come into an interview saying, I know how to conduct research, I know how to put a poster together, I know how to present. If you aren't familiar, you think like, poster, am I in 5th grade? But this is how scientists present their research. They do posters and they do seminars and things like that. So it's an incredible experience to get that and get that feedback from your professors and your other students and things. So you're going to really value that experience having it in this environment. We are almost out of time with our amazing chemistry group. I want to see if anybody has a final word of advice or takeaway piece of information that they'd like to give to our viewers before we transition into our next block.
I have a little bit of advice for people who, aren't really sure what they want to study. They're like, oh, I like science, but I don't really know what I want to do with it. I don't know what area of science. I recommend chemistry for one of the reasons that I said before, that chemistry is a central science and it can be related to so many different areas. If you have a good foundation in chemistry, even if you decide that you want to move on from that and go and study a different area of science, or like we said, do something completely different, a program in chemistry is really going to prepare you well for anything like that.
Just to like piggyback off of Dr. Vaughn, I think most of the panelists here have exhibited how interdisciplinary most science really is. And I think chemistry is a good one that encompasses all of those. Like we're taking physical chemistry right now, and we're doing a lot of physics in a chemistry class. So there's a way to have a balance between all the sciences that you like. And I think chemistry is a great bridge to other subjects that maybe you won't get to explore so much necessarily in undergrad, but maybe if you decide to pursue secondary education, it will provide that same type of foundation.
Okay, perfect. Well, we appreciate you guys so much coming on and sharing your experiences with our prospective students. It really is helpful for them to see what it could be like to study these disciplines. So thank you again. If anybody has more questions for us they did not get answered, please send them to your admission counselor and we will be happy to find out from chemistry faculty or other students some more answers for you, or to make those connections, because we definitely all want to help. But thank you so much, chemistry group. We appreciate you, and we will see you a little bit later. And then last but not least, we want to welcome our amazing public health crew. So we got Dr. Schmeichel, we have Sam, Yesha, and Nicole, and I think Brad also. Hello, welcome everyone. If any attendees are just joining us, we are starting our last block with our STEM Fest webinar. So we've heard from a few different areas, and now we're going to hear from our awesome public health crew. So we have Dr. Schmeichel, who is one of our amazing faculty members. She heads up the public health concentration, and then we have some current and students and alumni as well who've been involved in that program. So I'd love to have everybody introduce themselves briefly, tell us who you are and a little bit about yourself, and then we'd love to get an introduction to what is public health, what does it mean, why do we need it? I assume now more than ever we need people in the public health fields, and so what is that program all about?
I think it needs no introduction at this point. COVID-19, boom, that's it. Hi, I am Dr. Karen Schmeichel. I'm actually a professor in the biology program, but about, 8 years ago, the biologists, as well as it was an interdisciplinary group of faculty. I think you're hearing that a lot, that we interact quite a bit, both as students and as faculty. It was kind of a collective group across campus who got together and realized the organic interests of students from Oglethorpe. Increasingly, students were entering graduate school for public health or doing internships at local public health institutions. And of course, here at Oglethorpe, the CDC is literally a mile away. And so as we kind of scratched our head and we said, well, students are leading the way on this, why aren't we doing something to address innate interests among students in terms of getting invested in public health careers? We put our head together and we started a program, and I think you'll note from the name, it's a concentration. Our concentration is separate from any of the other science divisions, any of the other majors or minors on campus. It was kind of visualized as being a perfect forum in which to practice the liberal arts. And I'm going to leave it to the students and our alum, Brad Firchow, to kind of talk about this. But public health, as you all know from watching the news, is a very difficult problem. How do we provide basic health needs to everyone? It's a right, it's a human right. And this is difficult because anything having to do with large numbers of humans who are have different interests and different approaches, it's just a very difficult thing to manage, and it needs many voices, many disciplines to do. And so we thought starting a concentration at Oglethorpe would be a great way to bring together voices from lots of different disciplines. It turns out that the 4 of us that are here today, 5 of us, all have kind of a biology bent, but I'm hoping that some of the students can talk about how our concentration is populated by students across campus, not just in the sciences. It's a great place to kind of bring all those voices together and to share information and bring multi-disciplines to bear in terms of addressing this problem. So I'm going to go ahead and just let everyone introduce themselves, where they are in the concentration. I'll come back and talk about what the concentration is after people have kind of chimed in. But why don't I pass it off to Sam?
Okay, hey everyone, I'm Sam. I'm a biology major and a senior, and I'm also have a psychology minor. And so I don't know if there's anything else.
Concentration in public health. Dude.
Concentration in public health. If there's any other intro marks, yeah, and I don't know how much we are introducing ourselves. Was there anything else you wanted us to say?
I guess we can go around the room and you can come back later to some of your specific
Sounds good.
internship things. Yeah. So Yesha?
Hey everyone, my name's Yesha and I'm a junior. I'm a bio major and a chemistry minor and concentration in public health. I'm in the middle of the program, so I'm kind of almost there, but not there yet.
Nicole?
Hey everyone, my name is Nicole. I am a senior and I am also a biology major with the concentration in public health. And then this past semester, so this fall semester, is when I completed the concentration.
And Brad is our lone alum.
Yep, my name is Brad Firchow. I graduated last May. I was a biopsychology major, and I did the concentration in public health.
Okay, so our concentration is meant to fit in with a lot of different disciplines. It is a course that draws from 3 electives, one in a bin of classes that are communications, either true communications, communication studies, or languages. Then every student has to take a class from a STEM discipline, and every student has to take a class in a bin of classes called culture. And the idea is that these are kind of the main pillars with which public health practitioners have to navigate. And those disciplinary interests are brought to bear in a series of 3 2-credit-hour seminars. One is meant to be kind of an introduction to public health. We teach it through case studies, and there's a lot of student participation. The second course is, I call it fashion show, but a lot of people kind of tisk me. It's a course in which we invite public health practitioners from the local area to come in and talk about their corner of that field. In fact, this whole program has been supported by something on the order of 40 public health professionals who form our advisory group. And these folks kind of contribute to the program. They also offer internship opportunities. They come every year to a public health mixer where we talk about our common interests, and students get ideas for what to do next in terms of training, or different nonprofit groups that are out there and interested in public health issues. And so this second course is a way that we can connect with them even more. And then the final course is a group-directed internship for credit. So every student goes off on their own and gets involved in a public health organization. And every 2 weeks they come back, they share their experiences, they map it back onto some of the theory that we've talked about, and then they go back out there again. And of course, all of these things are meant to be packaged in such a way that students can manage this with other course loads. This is another way in which students can try stuff. You know, I mean, I think we heard that in previous sessions in terms of students wanting to be at Oglethorpe and take a look at your head on a swivel and figure out what resonates with you. And this concentration is a pretty low stakes, low commitment way to do that. However, it's pretty high impact given the types of people that we interact with. And I think I'll leave it from there, and maybe some of the student participants and our alum can fill in some gaps there, give us some examples about how that works. Yesha?
So as like a bio major, I find that this kind of has fit in really well, just as like Dr. Schmeichel iterated there. In terms of like the course load, it really, the bio major, there's a lot of classes that you have to take, so it fits in really nicely, and it kind of molds in terms of understanding, and it also overlaps with the core program a lot, which is what I found, and it makes you really think outside of the box and makes you consider things that you never really considered before. Like, I didn't really consider how much the government was involved in a lot of the policies that really affect us from a day-to-day point of view. And so it was really interesting for me to have a place where all of these things could kind of come together and meld into one, and have Dr. Schmeichel or Dr. Bobby kind of leading the way through it.
Anyone else?
Yeah, the public health concentration I enjoyed most is like the different structure of the classes, where it's not just a lecture, but they're much more hands-on classes, like with workshops. And we once had one of our class projects where we had an airplane simulation.
That was Brad.
Yeah. And so we do all kinds of like more interactive and like public health hands-on things. So it's a nice break from classes where you're just sitting in a lecture and you get to do something fun. Yeah.
I think one of my favorite parts of the public health program is how much Dr. Schmeichel and Dr. Bobby emphasize that anybody can be a practitioner of public health. You don't need to be a biology major or a chemist or someone who's interested in like environmental design or something like that. anybody can practice public health. And I think it's important, especially in a time like this, that we have people from all sorts of disciplines coming together to solve problems like the COVID-19 pandemic, and that we're all bringing our sensibilities to bear to solve these complex problems together.
I'd also like to add, like, I'd say one of my favorite things specifically is like the structure of the concentration, just because usually, like, obviously in courses, you'll kind of do like your intro course and then kind of cycle through. But in my case and in like the public health concentration, you can kind of enter at any point. So I started in at like the second level, and then like where we had like the fashion show, like Dr. Schmeichel was talking about, with the different speakers coming in, and then going through the internship, and then kind of circling back to the intro course. And so I think just in that case, I just appreciated the fact that I didn't have to like wait to start from the exact beginning, that I could kind of enter and still be able to keep up with everything and not be afraid that I'm behind or missing components or anything like that.
And I think it works that way. Like,
definitely.
You can teach it ahead or you can teach it behind. It all kind of, you know, you draw your experience forward, whatever it might be. So it's kind of cool. Can maybe you guys talk a little bit about your outside of campus, like some of the projects that you've done in association with the concentration, and I'd really like to also hear from Brad, because Brad's actually kind of living some public health as a job right now. So Sam, did you want to talk about your tobacco-free stuff?
Yes. So one of the projects that I worked with started out as a H designation, honors designation for public health. I think it was the second course. And so I looked at steps to implementing like a tobacco-free campus policy throughout that semester, in addition to the public health class. And from that, we worked on several awareness events like around campus and pushing for like tobacco-free policy. And so that we got to see public health in action, kind of like what it takes to convince people of your idea and how to inform people, how to educate people and communicate a public health message.
And not only that, when you were doing this is when the big vaping crisis kind of popped up. So it really resonated across campus, and it was really students who were pushing the agenda and trying to bring this to the awareness of the president and the administration. Yeah.
The vaping epidemic, or last fall, definitely helped. It was quite an epidemic, but yeah, all the incidents helped like emphasize the seriousness of why it's so important.
Nicole, did you want to talk about your internship?
Yeah, so my internship was at the Well Refugee Center, which was about like 20 minutes away from campus. And so I was their public health intern along with a couple other students that were also in the concentration as well. And so essentially the mission for them was to basically provide quality access to healthcare to refugees, especially since in Clarkston, Georgia, that there's like a significant population of refugee people there. And so different projects that we worked on consisted of like helping out with health fairs in the community, or canvassing efforts, which we simply just like going door to door and just explaining to people who we are, what our mission is, and different things like that.
So, and I'm pretty sure all of us who've been connected with this program, since we've talked to so many people who work at the CDC, we're very connected to what's going on with the COVID experience right now. But at the same time, I think we're all very concerned about the other public health initiatives that are kind of on the back burner. You know, they're important, but you know, how do we balance this? And I think, you know, having had some of these courses and these guest speakers and these internship experiences together, I think we all have a richer conversation about what priorities should be, and presumably kind of how you conduct your own affairs. Would you say that's true? Is this kind of informed you all in terms of how you approach COVID-19?
Definitely. I'd say that just like having the education and then just going through the different courses of public health, you kind of know how, like you said, just approaching the situation. And then also when I'm like talking to family members, I've noticed how like it can also be my responsibility and like educating other people about like what I've learned in courses and how this can apply to COVID-19, and just understanding that there's so many factors that are affecting all of us, and then kind of just explaining that to other people that might not be able to understand it.
And Dr. Schmeichel, to your point about other priorities that might not be looked at as heavily during a pandemic, this week is National STD Awareness Week. And yesterday was World Chagas Day, which is a neglected tropical disease. And during a pandemic where we're really worried about infectious diseases that are spread pretty easily, it can definitely force other things like mental health or neglected tropical disease onto the back burner, as you said. And with a disease like polio, for example, that's very close to being eradicated, we could even be a couple steps behind because now we're in a pandemic and trying to eradicate a disease at the same time. So it's really interesting, I think, to consider COVID-19 within a global context and how it's actually affecting our ability to tackle other major public health problems as well.
So Sam and Brad were both involved in internships during their concentration where they worked out of the same branch at the CDC. Maybe Sam, you want to start, and then Brad, you could pick up and tell how that has affected your trajectory professionally?
Yeah, so one of the great things about Oglethorpe is that it's the CDC is just like a mile or so down the road. And so for the third installment of the public health classes, which is the internship seminar, I interned at the CDC in their childhood development studies teams. Specifically, they looked at ADHD and Tourette's syndrome in children. And so I got to see a hands-on what like public health actually looks like. And so I worked in the health communications specialist. And so that involved like proofreading articles that they were publishing and giving feedback on different like social media posts they were making about ADHD awareness. And so that kind of like the internship really helped like me understand what public health is like, and that's now what I'm interested in, pursuing health communications.
And that kind of married your biology and your psychology a little bit together.
Right. Yeah, mental health. And so yeah, as a psychology minor, I enjoy the learning about that side. So yeah, it was a perfect blend of worlds.
And off to grad school, right?
Yes, hopefully.
A little bit of an MPH program coming. Brad?
Well, Sam and I had a fairly similar experience, actually. We both sort of blended biology and psychology. We both interned on the same team at the CDC. My work at the CDC over the course of my 2-year-long internship there was really focused on sort of peer review and science writing, and I also did some data collation and mining as well. So really getting into the nitty-gritty of the data sets and publications and all the intricacies that involve getting a publication through a federal agency, which entails a lot more than I thought it did going in. But kind of after having that experience and sort of getting the sensibilities of a bunch of different people that we work with, whether they're clinical people or communicators or lawyers, all sort of working on the same public health problems, ADHD and Tourette syndrome in our case. It was really neat to see that sort of team come to bear, and it feels like a liberal arts environment. And it felt a lot like our public health program too, where we have all these different shareholders coming and bringing their talents and their skills together to kind of work towards the common good. And my experiences in the public health program definitely shaped my career trajectory as well. I was one of those kids who came into Oglethorpe thinking I would go to medical school straight out of college. No ifs, ands, or buts about that. And then Dr. Schmeichel gave me a book by Paul Farmer called Mountains Beyond Mountains, and it definitely shifted that trajectory a little bit. I sort of broadened my perspective on what it means to be a practitioner of health, and learned that there are other ways to do that than just as a physician. While that is also a noble pursuit and one that I still intend to do. But I graduated from Oglethorpe into a role coordinating a global pediatric surgery program at a non-government organization or charity here in Atlanta in Midtown. So I was in that for the past about 10 months. And then as COVID-19 was sort of coming on to the world stage, it really slowed a lot of the work that global health nonprofits were able to do. So most of my surgery cases weren't really moving. And another opportunity was presented through an Oglethorpe alum, actually, for me to become a health communication specialist full-time on the COVID-19 response. So about 2 weeks ago, I started my new role at CDC, and I'm working on a team that coordinates social media messaging and news media messaging for the COVID response. So we're taking what the scientists and the clinicians want to get out to the public and packaging it in a way that is understandable and easily readable and visually appealing.
Cool. Good work.
So that's really cool. I love hearing that, and that transitions to a question we just got in the Q&A. What kind of careers are available with studying public health? So we just heard two sort of different types of options that Brad's already seen that are related to studying public health. And I'm curious if there are other things that we typically see students do if their main interest would be public health, or other things that transition well with studying that concentration.
Well, I think there are quite a few things to do. Every county has a Department of Public Health. There are public health advisors. There are people who do research in epidemiology. There are people who do basic science research, whether it be for infectious or non-infectious kinds of situations. There are kind of contracting companies that send these people out for specialty gigs around the globe. There are lots of international organizations like the one Brad was just telling us about that bring on people as well. And I think we see also kind of a lot of give and take between people who are trained to be doctors, but then to parlay that information to communities. So they're just, I think, you know, there are many different roles that are out there, and so many that they don't kind of map onto singular tracks. It's kind of ebb and flow. And again, if you're a practitioner of public health, if you bring a particular specialty, whether you're a scientist, whether you're a communicator, whether you're a policy expert, people who do public health tend to track towards collaborative efforts and wanting to work on teams. And I think you can see that in the media as we go through the COVID-19 thing, a lot of people trying to work that way. There are government jobs, there are private sector jobs, there are, right, any company who is making a chemical needs someone to think about the potential interactions of those chemicals with humans. And so, right, there are lots of different ways that you might apply yourself. But, you know, I think that we've been seeing, so in our class, this fashion show class, we see economists that are chiming in. We see people who are interested in literacy, how patients perceive messaging, even just on prescription bottles and things like that. It's kind of everywhere. You just don't know it's there until you're in it. And I don't know, is that what you all are seeing as you start to roll around in this a little bit?
Yeah, I would agree. I think when I first was introduced to public health, I thought of it in a much more sciencey way. And then throughout public health classes, I've seen like all the different ways you can take from like politicians that have a public health background to sociology majors in our classes. Yeah, the economist really puts the cherry on the cake. Like that's so far removed from what you would think as public health, but they're just as involved. It's really interdisciplinary.
And I think for me as well, I think right now in Dr. Bobby's in the fashion show class, we have to do the white paper assignment. And my major focus was how a corrupt economy can affect public health. And never did I think those things would come together. But as I've kind of done my research and continued to go in depth in what's kind of going on in the situation, because I'm from Zimbabwe and I like to kind of play those things out. It's really come to bear, especially during this, the coronavirus epidemic pandemic, and how the effect of the corruption has really seeped so deeply that the country was not prepared for the coronavirus pandemic. And I think it's just, it's really interesting to see how all those things can come together in one sort of multidisciplinary field.
And we really try. So we talked about this public health mixer. It's kind of a thing every year to bring our advisory group that comes from every different walk of life in public health to come and talk to our students about it. I mean, some of our advisors are personnel manager people. Others are logicians, right? And that's why that mixer is so important, because you need to get an idea of what you can do out there and what drives people and why they do it. So that's a flagship event for us every year, a mixer, so that you can see people and what they're doing with it, and maybe doing a little bit of networking, a little bit of schmoozing, so to speak, to find your next opportunity.
Yeah, one thing that is very obvious from everything that all the different folks in this webinar have let us know is that there's a lot of things you can do beyond the sort of 10 jobs that we've all heard of a million times, right? Being a doctor or a teacher or a lawyer, right? There are so many things that span all different disciplines that you can use your interests and skills to do really well. And so come into college with an open mind, pursuing the things that are interesting to you, and then we'll be able to find so many ways that you can use that to make a difference. So yeah, there's a lot of opportunities that you've never heard of that we want to expose you to.
Right, and if nothing else, just wander in a faculty member's office and say, what book could I read? And we'll give you a couple that you might actually read, and it might actually make you think a little bit differently.
Yeah, we got a little proof of that from Brad down there. Well, awesome. Well, we are almost out of time with our amazing public health crew. I would love to give you guys a moment. Anybody who has a piece of advice or a final word that they'd like to share with our students that you think would be helpful for them. We have a couple more minutes that we could share a few things.
Well, I mean, I will say this program is kind of new, but it has gained traction and student interest has been pretty robust. And so I wouldn't be surprised if this transitions at some point in the future into a minor. Most schools do not have full-blown majors because it is so interdisciplinary. And I like to think we're ahead of the curve in terms of leveraging our liberal arts background and being inclusive to all disciplines kind of going forward. And I think if we did roll out a minor, it might help that even more.
I think come into it with an open mind and try different things. The public health concentration was something I didn't think I would get into, but the first class was just something that kind of took me aback, and just with all the other things that I've been exposed to, as well as having the science background, it's really shown me how you can pull things together, as well as, like I said earlier, you find core kind of playing a role in it. So just go into it with an open background and try everything that you can while you're there.
I think I would also say that the public health concentration is going to prepare you for pretty much any career you would want to do after college. Going through the concentration, you're going to be someone who is more scientifically literate than the general population and probably a better communicator as well. And both of those skills are going to serve you well in your job, but also as a citizen and advocate for the things that you care about.
Perfect. Well, this has been really helpful. I can't imagine a better time to be talking about public health. So I really appreciate y'all's time so much communicating with our students. For anybody who has additional questions, please reach out to your admission counselor. We're happy to connect you with faculty or students, or just get answers for you to continue as you're thinking about what you might want to study or different opportunities on campus. That is the end of our STEM Fest webinar. We appreciate all of our panelists so much. You guys are rock stars. We really appreciate your time and sharing your experiences with our students. And we want to thank the attendees also who are with us. And if you're watching this later recorded version, please send us any questions you may have, and we are happy to address them. But thank you again. We hope you're safe and doing well with your families. And if there's anything we can do for you, please let us know. But otherwise,
Stay healthy.
Yeah, stay healthy. Hug when this is over, hug a public health professional. I'm sure they or elbow bump them.
Okay.
But yes, keep safe. Thank you so much, and we will speak with you soon.